Okay, so we'll both smile in the camera real quick, and then I'll take a
Okay.
screenshot. All right, we are live. Let me move this screen over. So people that might be at their computers are going to follow this live. And those of you that have seen this on my stream before, I encourage you to ask any questions that you might have. I am joined today by Marissa Limsiaco. Did I get it right?
You did, yes.
Perfect. Okay. So what's been happening during this crisis, and I've been telling people this from the very beginning, when I was in the Army, Marissa, the very first things I did was find every platoon sergeant, first sergeant, and member of the lieutenant mafia that would talk to me to explain to me how the hell I was supposed to do my job and get through this new adventure. Then when I left the Army and got into business as an entrepreneur with this idea I had, I immediately turned right around again and asked every entrepreneur for all their advice, and one beer at a time, taking them out for a happy hour. I learned how to speak the language of business. And then when just this year, as we saw the COVID crisis coming, I said, holy crap, I need to ask some smart people what is going to change and what needs to change and how they're going to adapt. And out of this process in late February, early March, I had some amazing conversations with really smart people in areas I didn't know much about in terms of how it was going to impact society. And then I said, wait a minute, since we all got to stay at home and I'm an extrovert and I got to get out, this will be my venue to get out through Facebook Live and online. Why not interview people in real time about what's going on, what they're doing, and then just share it. And if people like it, they comment. And if they don't like it, no harm, no foul. But the fact of the matter is we're contributing. And I always remind everybody in every interview, our first thoughts go to those that are on the front lines in the care of the sick, and those healthcare heroes, and all the people that are providing essential services for us. Then secondly, you've got that tier of people who have now found themselves immediately out of a job. And then that in trying to make ends meet. And then that third group are those businesses that are just trying to hold it together to survive to the end of this, whatever the end might look like. And you, Marissa, are a perfect person to have here, because what you have experienced both as a business leader is going through that change, but also secondly, you have a real idea, a solution that can help a lot of people. And so I'm so excited. I'm going to go in here later on and drop all your bio information. But when I look at your bio, it seems like you're a modern day Renaissance. You've been here, you've been there, both in real estate and in capital and investing. You also volunteer a lot with Girl Scouts. I mean, there's really few areas that you haven't made an impact in yet. And I'm thrilled to have you in here today, because for those that have been following this, your interview like 28 or 29, but we're moving into the discussions of real estate. So Heidi and Ashley, if you're listening, Jim Young, if you're listening, we're going to get you on because this could have the biggest long-term impact if employers can't pay their employees, if people can't pay their rent, whether residential or commercial. So Marissa, with that very long, overly worded introduction, thanks for being here. First of all, tell me how you're doing being hunkered down, and then we'll get into your business and this novel idea that you have.
Well, we're pretty settled, and I think on the Groundhog Day experience, my wife and I, I like to say, and I'm a veteran. We talked about that, just almost like the mentality of being deployed, where you don't know what day it is, and it's pretty much the same kind of scenes and whatnot. For us, we were fortunate to sell our house right before all of this happened in February. And
I mean, you're talking like sold it, like done, like ink, like cash in the bank kind of sold.
Yes. Okay. And the plan was for us to, get a temporary apartment before we moved to our other house. We needed a bigger space because my brother-in-laws were moving in with us and he's in a wheelchair. And so we needed to give ourselves some time. And so we signed this 6-month lease in a 600 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment. And then all of this happened. And so
Did you say 800 square foot apartment? 600 with 3 people?
For 2 people and a little dog. Yes.
Okay. Your brother-in-law's not there yet.
Not here yet. No.
Okay.
This would be way too small. And so we've adapted. She's a therapist. And so she gets this bedroom. She doesn't have any clients this morning. We've got the sound machine going on that you'd usually hear in a therapist's office, those little round things,
Yeah.
And then I talk a lot and I talk loud when I'm on my phone calls. And so I got to share am I allowed to share my screen? Because I could show you
Absolutely.
my little setup.
Let's make sure. If you don't have share capability, I'm going to give it to you.
Here you go. And so you could see there, I'm in the laundry closet.
Wait,
Was
you're
where I
not
got
making
put.
this up. That's you right now from time to time when you're working?
That's not me right now. I actually got the bedroom right now. But
Oh,
it's the way my voice is contained, and I've got my little coworker there with me, Hank.
where's
But
Hank? I don't see
he's in
Hank.
my lap
Oh, there
right
he
there,
is.
if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah,
see
yeah.
him. Yes. And so I literally had all my investor conversations in the last couple of weeks have been
All
in
right, hold
that
on.
little,
I got to take a screenshot of this for future use. Hold on. This is brilliant.
and I can send it to you as well, so you have the actual file.
Wow.
But
Okay.
it's been some adapting, but we've been making it work. And unfortunately, I'll sometimes hit that dryer button, and it'll go off without me knowing it's going off. But we've been making do so far.
That's fabulous. Okay, so I gave, by the way, a little shout out to Jim Young because he was the one that recommended that I talk to you
Yes,
because he's in commercial real estate and he's doing well, but he, like everybody in real estate right now, has been impacted. So
absolutely.
for every entrepreneur that's out there listening, I'm going to share this out on various entrepreneur networks and groups on Facebook. So here you are. You got this idea for a new company. In the last year, you're putting it together with your team and you're getting together all your launch materials and you're launching a new company that was going to do what? And then now that the launch has been impacted by COVID, how are you pivoting?
Yes. So there's a couple of ways we can go with that conversation. I've got a couple points because Otso actually came out of a previous company that I had. And launching during a crisis, for some
And by the way,
reason,
I'm still listening. I'm just grabbing the link and I'm going to drop it down
yeah, no
into.
worries. Launching during a crisis is nothing new to my business partner and I, because when we launched our other company, Tenavox, the hurricane in Houston had just hit.
Oh, you've got some
Um,
timing. Do me
we've
a
got
favor.
some
The
great
next
timing.
time you launch a new company, call me first so I can
I
move to
will.
a safe location.
So yes, with Otso, and I was just telling you, overnight, we literally our go-to-market strategy as far as our sales messaging, who we were calling, and all of that really got thrown out the window. And just like every other founder entrepreneur, we kind of like scratched our heads for a second there, and it's like, what's the next move? How do we go about this mindfully?
And every entrepreneur is going to want to know in your decision making, how were you funded? Were you bootstrapped? Or did you have investors? Like how much of that had an impact on your decisions going forward?
Yes, we're fully funded. We're not bootstrapped. Mr. Jim Young is one of our investors and a board member with us as well, who I think
Okay.
you're going to have this afternoon. So it's great
Yeah.
to have another subject matter expert on our team. But we had to really kind of change our approach. But fortunately enough, unlike a lot of startups with the crisis, we have a solution that can help folks today and provide critical aid to businesses, as well as increase some risk coverage for landlords.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to drop this in for the Texas Economic Development Council for them to be listening to this later on.
Great, yeah. And
Because
so, yeah,
this is a
absolutely.
concern for a lot of small business. And by the way, it's not just in Texas, but are you only able to help in Texas? Are there laws or regulations?
There aren't. It's just more so we're in the pilot initial phases of this, and so we wanted to limit it to Texas. But what's great about this model is we can scale pretty fast, and it's market agnostic, it's property agnostic.
Okay, so I've interrupted you so many times. People that are listening actually probably want to know what it is that Otso does. So please go ahead and explain what you're doing with commercial real estate.
Yeah, so our whole mission with Otso is to accelerate business and make leasing commercial real estate easy. We have a credit guarantee product that essentially unlocks security deposit and the security deposits and replaces them with a AA rated backed guarantee. So instead of, as a business, putting down, it's anywhere between $5,000 to $50,000 on average, for your average small businesses.
And can you translate that in terms of, and maybe this, I'm asking the question wrong, in terms of the number of months in advance that security deposit would be the equivalent of, for people to gauge just how big this can be at times?
Yes, it really depends on the business and the credit of that business, and really the market. So here in Austin, I've seen up to 3 to 4 months of rent up front, because it really is a landlord market where we have 99% vacancy. Or before all this happened, we were really tight.
Yeah.
In places like Houston, where landlords really, really need to fill their vacancies, they have a higher vacancy rate. They may be a little bit more lax and just request, and depending on the business, just request maybe a 1 month security deposit put down.
Yeah.
So it really varies.
Okay, so but going back to your model, so traditionally, if I am a small business and I want to get into that piece of commercial real estate, that storefront, based on whatever size it is, describe the process. Those of us that have gone through it, we know how cumbersome it is, but those that see an opportunity here, describe it for them.
Yeah. So, as we were talking about before, and you've done this yourself, the whole discussion around the deposit and assessing tenant financials are typically kind of kicked down towards the end of the negotiations, like kicked down the road, we like to say. And so if you just toured a property and I was your landlord, then I'd be like, this is great. I'm going to try to figure out how to quote you. We'll put a little TBD on your security deposit and your financials and work that out later on. And so it's not like until afterwards and you've invested all of this time that, they're like, okay, now can you turn in your financials? And it varies between, sources and uses documents, taxes.
Especially when you are a startup business that doesn't have all that prior history.
Correct. And so, it's tough. And then out of nowhere, they'll be like, well, you haven't been around, Joseph, so I'm going to need to ask for 15 to 20 grand. And you to most people, if they have never done this before, especially startups, don't anticipate to put that much capital down. There's other ways there's subleases that, require less capital up front and less rent. But we're talking about traditional leases, your 3 to 7 year commitments. That's usually a big portion to start. And so what Otso does is, instead of kicking that conversation down the road, it's really built to have it up front. And so when you tell me you're interested in my property, then I would send you a link and say, hey,
okay,
Joseph.
So to make this easier, instead of using pronouns of me or you, so when the lender or the small business, when who does what?
When the tenant tours a space, and then the landlord says, or the landlord's broker will say, hey, tenant, here's a link. I just need to assess your financials. Will take you less than 5 minutes. And then the tenant takes this assessment, and that's Otso's proprietary kind of algorithm that assesses their credit and their financial history. And then
by the way, I want to point out your expertise in this. Looking at your background, you've been in this world of making these calculations for some time. That's part of your secret sauce.
It is. Yes. Yeah. And along with, having a lot of smart people around me who helped us make this algorithm and these decisions, really based on how landlords make decisions.
So let's go back to the scenario. So the tenant gets this link from the broker or the landlord and they fill it out. How long does it take to fill out this link? And is it live now?
Yes, it is live now, but you would need your landlord to enroll with us. It takes you less than 5 minutes. You basically confirming your entity, confirming your years in business, and then connecting to your bank account so that we could do an assessment of your financial history.
Right. And so this is part of this overall fintech theme that I've been hearing about in different areas where they're looking at more than just your quote unquote credit rating. So are there concerns, or is anybody nervous out there that this is getting too far into personal privacy? And can you address that of what you might have done to, mitigate that concern?
Yeah. So as far as assessing the credit, and business credit is a lot different from personal credit. It's a lot harder to tell a business's true financial health from just credit and taxes, because most people don't, from an income standpoint or whatever, report differently as far as their business goes. And so from a credit standpoint, we actually use public information and our partner that really leverages the Dun & Bradstreet, information.
Yep.
And Think Experian and all that. So we have, that's all pulled from public information. And then on the bank side, we use what's called Plaid to connect to your bank account. So
what's it called? Is that an acronym or a company?
It is a company. It's an integration that, and think like anything that you pay with your phone leverages that Plaid's technology. And so it's extremely secure. And so that's from a security standpoint. We made obviously every point to make folks comfortable in using our platform.
Yeah. All right. So then at this point, now I am a landlord. I have said, after looking at the credit score, that this person seems to have, this business has all the credentials that maybe I don't need a huge deposit 3-4 months in advance, and a lot of cash out of pocket that they may or may not have, but instead look to you all to help make them feel safer, feel better, feel more secure. What do you offer to that landlord to be a part of this service?
Yes. So for that landlord, we essentially may provide increased risk coverage. So in some cases, a landlord may just charge $10,000, but when the tenant goes through, they may realize, oh, I could get covered for $15,000 to $20,000 under Otso. So there's this increased risk coverage, as well as, as far as paying for it, they just simply pass down, that expense to the tenants through just a little bit more rent. At the end of the day, a landlord is a business, and to keep that business going and that property up, they need their tenants to be successful.
Yeah.
And so a landlord's intent, and this really helps the landlord, position their tenants to be successful in that, hey,
Yeah.
keep that $15,000 and put that towards working capital for your own business. So you can.
So now let me back this up to a question I asked you, or something you brought up before we started going live here, which is, so now we're in an era of COVID. We have businesses that are shuttered either by choice or by government, establishing them as not key and essential, but they still have to pay rent. They still have to be able to keep the gears of capitalism going forward until we figure out our way out of this. Could a landlord who is currently sitting on traditional forms of deposit where there's thousands of dollars locked up on a particular tenant use your service to be able to free some of that money in a way that would allow them to still pay rent, to make ends meet, and figure out the mess later on down the road? Is that asking too much, or what can you do there with Otso's technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. We can totally help with that. And then, backing up to our conversation around, how we kind of pivoted our messaging, and a lot of it was geared towards new deals. Well, in COVID, 80% of deals, like deal flow fell 80% last month. And so there's not a lot of that going on. In addition, so what we're doing, allowing is to unlock that capital. So absolutely, a landlord can enroll with us today. And assuming that they have the reserves and financial ability to do so, are able to go to their tenants and be like, hey, let me try to help you out here, take this assessment, and then exchange and pay that tenant back their deposit and put some more cash in their pockets, and exchange that for a credit guarantee with Otso.
Right. Now, let me ask the tough question, which is, if you happen to be a tenant that goes through your formula that doesn't get a very favorable rating, what happens there?
Yeah, so that's why when I said after a tenant takes the application, that it just says thank you for submitting your information, and then we kind of leave it to the landlord to. So there's not this, oh, you were disapproved or not approved. The landlords are really using us as a tool to get assessment, and if that assessment comes back in favor of approval, then they could work it out.
Okay.
But most likely you wouldn't know whether or not you were. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's basically, you're just giving landlords one more tool in the traditional system. And by having this tool, they unlock a new capability, which may be to, in this time, give back some of that security deposit. And in them future deals, not even need as much of a deposit. Is that, am I interpreting 100%? It right?
That is exactly how we want to position ourselves to landlords and brokers trying to get deals done and help their clients.
Right. So how to get your word out? How are you now this, I'm putting back on my coach mentor hat, working with startups. How are you getting your message out? What channels, what distribution? And for people that are listening, by the way, I'm going to drop this on various Facebook groups that I think might find this of value. How are you getting your word out there, and how can I help?
Yes. So, we've got a sales team that, does all of the research and whatnot. Our target markets are landlords. right now, as well as brokers. And so we're doing a lot of outreach, with a third party helping us out there. We're also doing a lot of info sessions specifically for brokers. As of today, and I'm sure Jim will talk about this later on, landlords are really nervous because, as much as businesses don't have the cash to pay for rent, landlords have a business too, like I mentioned. And typically, 90% of commercial properties are on debt. And so, with that being
for those
said,
that aren't experts, let's make sure we clarify what it means, which is that the landlords have obligations to pay because they borrowed that money, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so even to collect the rent, you've got the expenses, you got the property management, all of these other items that the landlords have to worry about. And sometimes they don't have, too many months of reserves. So depending on how long this goes, without any relief from lenders or the government that's wanting to assist these landlords, it's going to be tough. So that a lot of them are really, really nervous right now, especially those that, aren't in the position with a lot of reserve behind them.
Yeah. Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left. So what I want to do is pivot just a little bit and go on to the entrepreneur side of this. So anybody that's in the real estate industry, hopefully will really appreciate the crunchy details, what you provided. And I'll say, when I move this over onto LinkedIn, we share the video there, any other links you want to put on there and tag people to make sure that they're aware of it, that'd be great.
Yeah, let's just appreciate it.
Yeah, let's just talk about you as an entrepreneur and how you and your team are adjusting to different cycles. I've been, like I say, through almost 30 interviews now. Everybody's adapting in their own way. Some of the key themes I hear a lot are about boundaries, key themes about daily routines, about how to just manage yourself and, control what you can. Other themes include this notion of having hours where we just stop work and, no more emails the rest of the night, because since we're all home, we're all online, there's almost no limit to where, communications could go. Take it in any direction. How have you as an entrepreneur grown, learned, changed, pivoted, that you think hopefully you're learning from whatever mistakes you might be making to get better, faster, and stronger that others could learn from?
Yes. I think the topic of self-care and really having your mindset, especially when you're in times of crisis. I think when all of this happened, I kind of sat down and I gave myself a day to just kind of sit in bed and kind of mope around about it. We're all human.
Hey, that's very real. I said in a conversation with Phil Dillard in a previous interview, we were talking about the 7 stages of grief, and that really people kind of have to process this because, there's a lot of people, in fact, too many people that were in denial for a long time.
Oh,
I think it made us
absolutely.
vulnerable. But anyway, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt. You were
No,
talking
it
about
really
that
is like the stages of grief as far as the psychology of a founder in a crisis, in a downturn like this, because you are in denial and then you get angry, and then you're depressed, but then you accept it. And I remember the next day I just was like, I have to let all of this go. We're going to figure a way out of this. And, as entrepreneurs, we're problem solvers, we're creators. And so, I knew before going to my team, I had to get myself together. Right. And so, we found another outlet, and we just kind of, pounded back, talking to investors and, getting back with our customers. But I went back to my team and I said, you know what, our mission, we've had a very special mission from the beginning. Yeah. But with everything going on, our mission just got greater than ourselves and more important, because we have the ability to help all of these people and to really position the vision of the company and the people that are working with you to, come in to look, we're helping each other out. They need us more than ever right now. It's really been, good morale booster for the team. They're all motivated, and motivates myself every day. So that mindset, of admitting you're all human and kind of going through those emotions, because holding those emotions to one sense isn't healthy, but then picking yourself up and then being able to set yourself up to pick up the rest of your team is really important.
And as an entrepreneur myself, I have to put the shameless plug in for one of the first videos I did. I think it was episode 3 or 4. It was a woman named Mara Neville Thomas who talked not about time management, but about attention management. Yes. And the reason why that episode interview was so powerful for me, and I hope it helps others, is it complemented what I had already been reading and trying to do in 2020 already, which is, look, I haven't figured out what I want to be when I grow up. I've got all kinds of different activities. I'm like that dog in the movie Up, chasing every squirrel that comes by. And so I was already trying to be more mindful about focus. But what she, and I took her little survey online, what her work does is try to make sure you don't manage your time, but your attention. And the most powerful thing I've done in the last month that has paid unbelievable dividends is to delete or close out open windows on my screen that I don't need. And so whatever I'm doing, and it sounds silly and sounds
I have a lot of windows open at all times.
I'm telling you,
I'll have
Marissa,
to try that out.
I can't believe how much it's helped me, because I used to have this crutch that says, oh, well, I'm going to keep this window open because I'm going to come back to this task later on. No, what it does is create this Christmas tree of lights and tabs, and then it overwhelms a person. And the last time I remember feeling like that was in Ranger School in Desert Phase at Fort Bliss, where the Ranger instructor, stuck the compass in my face and said, okay, now Ranger, you're in charge. And I was like, but it's how we react under pressure and stress that makes the difference. And Marissa, I can tell that you and your team are well set from your experiences. So I'm going to wrap up and ask the final question, which is, did I fail to ask you anything that you wanted to share with the audience? And again, it'll grow over time on social media and there'll be more people tuning in. What would you like to make sure that they know?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for this platform, Joe.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. I'll put the additional links on LinkedIn. I think that, kind of my last point, adding on to your thought on being an entrepreneur, you're absolutely right. We're ADHD multitaskers trying to do 50 million things at once. And I think this time, specifically with COVID's really, really amplified this for myself is the importance of gratitude and staying excited. And so every day I wake up and there's this awesome book called The Panda Book that forces
The Panda Book?
The Panda Book. The Panda
All right, I'm going to look it up and drop the link while
drop
you're
it in because it's been a life changer, especially as an entrepreneur, because it has you prioritize every day. And we do that already, but I typically
now I see several. I see a panda book, a book for kids about pandas, the Panda Problem.
It's a panda journal. Look that up on and I could send you the exact one that I have. There's a couple versions.
Okay,
of it.
just drop the link since there's a lot of pandas out there.
Yeah,
okay.
But I'll drop the link after this. But really staying grounded through all of this and keeping perspective and what are we really, really grateful for. It has been really important. And then another tip, as far as like your window thing, I've turned off notifications on my phone, other than certain hours of the day for business, obviously.
For the last 6-8 months, I've had a do not disturb on my iPhone from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And I figure between those times, the only people that can break through are family. And if it's anything worse than that, really worse than that, I'll probably see it on social media. And otherwise, I could probably live till the morning. So
yeah, no, that's true.
Absolutely.
Well, great.
Well,
that's all I had. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that's a great note to end on, the idea of gratitude. And it reminds us where we started this conversation, which is to think about those people on the front lines, the sick and the caregivers, the healthcare workers that are right there every day in that fight. That second group, that second tier, are the people that have lost their jobs, that have been laid off or furloughed, that really have stress and concern about how they're going to pay rent. And that third group, the ones that I think I can help because of where I sit in the world, which is those small business, those entrepreneurs, those people that are trying to stitch it all together to survive to the other side. And you, Marissa, today, with not just Otso, but just your outlook, have provided not only hope for them, I believe, but an actual takeaway. They need to go to your site. They need to figure out, they need to talk to their landlord. They need to make sure their landlord knows what you're doing. And together we're going to share this information and hopefully relieve some of the stress for folks. And it's because of what you're doing as an entrepreneur. So thank you very much for being here today. And I look forward to seeing you in person when all this lifts.
I can't wait.
You too, Marissa. Take care.
Thanks, Joseph. Cheers.
All right, bye.